Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And God of War is a franchise that truly needs no introduction. The stories, the characters, the level design, the cinematography, everything about this franchise is peak. And it's a franchise that I have wanted to cover on this channel for a long time now. Kratos obviously is very infamous for, well, God ending. He's got literally 2 entire pantheons on a t-shirt, and every time a new God of War game is made, the list just grows and grows. But what if he had to fight an entire pantheon dedicated to destruction? But before that, if you like the power scaling content, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And with all that garbage out the way, let's get into the matchup. The Kratos I will be using in today's video will be the one from the Greek Saga games. While he's not as strong as his Norse counterpart, I think that using Greek Kratos is just narratively better for this matchup. We will be analyzing Greek Saga Kratos' feats, statements, and lore to see how he compares to gods of destruction, grand priests, as well as a being that's so powerful it can wipe them all out with a single thought. When talking about the gods of Dragon Ball Super, it's important to be specific in which gods we are talking about, as well as which continuity I'll be using for this video. If the opening of the video didn't make it clear, I will be talking about the angels, the gods of destruction, and Zeno himself. And the continuity I will be using is the one from the Dragon Ball Super manga, as I feel like that's the most consistent. And when Dragon Ball Super anime returns, that's the chain I believe that it will follow. Plus, I think that scaling these 3 groups of gods is probably the best course of action, especially seeing as how any lesser gods would just downscale them to varying degrees. Like, do you guys need me to prove that Kratos could be Kami or King Kai? I didn't think so. But anyway, starting off with the gods of destruction, and to put it pretty blatantly, they should all be relative, with the top 3 being Beerus, Belmod, and the mouse one. I don't know his name. But anyways, these 3 had the best showcases in the all-out brawl that all the gods of destruction had before the Tournament of Power, as Beerus, Belmod, and the mouse one were the only ones left standing, with the mouse one even going as far to say that he knew Beerus would be one of the last ones standing. Keep in mind that all the gods of destruction started the fight by jumping Beerus. So even among gods, Beerus is a god. So we'll just talk about Beerus from here on out and downscale all the other gods of destruction, but they all should be relative. So to start to gauge the attack potency of Beerus, at bare minimum he's low multiversal, as he was going to destroy the entire macrocosm alongside Goku during their scuffle in the Battle of Gods arc. The Dragon Ball macrocosm being a space that contains multiple infinite space-times as well as transcendental areas such as the afterlife, making it bare minimum a low multiversal construct. But he should be in the multiversal tier as he would scale above current Goku. And for some context to know why that's so important, Goku's a character that in the first saga of Dragon Ball Super was showing low multiversal feats. So stack all of the multipliers via transformations, all of the training arcs, and then get to Goku during the Moro saga, and well, Beerus would just upscale that, very simply. This is further supported via Toyotara's author statements as well as some promotional material that would seem to imply that Beerus is still above Goku. And Beerus does have some feats to back it up. He was able to one-shot post-Moro Saga Vegeta, and you also got stuff like him narratively implied to be able to one-shot Moro, and then Goku post-Moro Saga sweats Beerus, saying he's someone not to mess with. As previously mentioned, all of the gods of destruction share relativity, so they would all upscale to this level of power to varying degrees, some being closer to Beerus than others granted, but low multiversal to multiversal, either way you look at it. And then you got the angels, with people like Whis being able to one-shot Beerus, and by extension logically upscaling the gods of destruction. Keep in mind Whis isn't even the strongest angel, as his sister's a little stronger than him, and none of the angels at the moment even scale to the Grand Priest, who is by far the strongest angel, with having a lot of statements confirming this to be the case, and having a pretty good feat of stopping Beerus with a single finger. So even though we can only say the angels are low multiversal to multiversal, they would be considerably deeper into it. And then we get into the Omni King himself, Lord Zeno. And Zeno just, nobody scales to him at the moment in the entire verse. So bare minimum, he's multiversal. And he has feats that back this up. He was able to destroy Future Trunks' timeline, so that's some low multiversal stuff. But that's nothing in comparison to some of the later stuff. Whis confirms that there used to be 18 universes, but Zeno actually destroyed 6 of them. Keep in mind, each is a low multiversal construct, so casual multiversal stuff right there. But keep in mind, each universe is composed of branched timelines, with branched timelines being created by even very minor things. So Zeno would have had to destroy all 6 of those macrocosms as well as their alternate timelines. So multiversal consistency right there. And Whis confirms in the manga that he's able to destroy all of existence. So he would be able to do that with 12 macrocosms. Now as for speed for all these guys, they should all fall anywhere from infinite to immeasurable speed. Infinite speed mainly comes from them upscaling Buu Saga characters, which I have explained have infinite speed metas. Angel Mortals such as Whis can travel to the Omni King's palace, which is a space separate from all 12 other macrocosms, so that's an infinite speed feat right there. And remember, in the Battle of Gods arc, Beerus was able to quickly intercept and nullify an attack that would have destroyed the entire macrocosm. So as we've established, macrocosm has multiple infinite size spaces, so yeah, Beerus should scale to that. And as for Lord Zeno, I don't think I have to explain that one. Inaccessible is also a pretty viable end in my opinion, seeing as how in the manga, Goku is shown to move into space without time, as well as Zeno. Beerus should upscale Goku and we should upscale Goku, so all three of these guys would be inaccessible speed off of that. And immeasurable is kind of reaching, but there's some stuff to support it, such as Infinite Zamasu possibly being immeasurable speed, as his power was affecting the past and the future. Goku should upscale him by a considerable amount, and therefore everyone else that we're talking about would as well. So to wrap this part of the video up, the gods of destruction as well as the angels would scale anywhere from at least low multiversal to more than likely multiversal, with Lord Zeno being bare minimum multiversal, like objectively. Their speed should range anywhere from infinite to immeasurable, so yeah, pretty good stuff overall. But how does this compare to the Ghosts of Sparta? Alright, to start off with the Kratos segment, I'm going to be skipping his lower ends, because if he's going to fight people that are low multiversal to multiversal, what's the point of talking about solar system metas, you know what I mean? But fortunately for us, his scaling is pretty straightforward. Kratos beats Zeus, Zeus upscales the Olympians upscale the Titans, and the Titans upscale the Primordials. Fairly straightforward scaling chain, I know, but what are the feats of some of these guys? Well, for starters, the lowest people at the chain were the Primordials, and they created the God of War cosmology merely as a consequence of their battle. This is important to note because the God of War cosmology is composed of multiple infinite-sized realms, so it would be a low multiversal construct. The Titans upscale the Primordials as they beat and replace them, as confirmed by author statements, and the Olympians beat the Titans. To add some consistency to this level of power, one of the Titans, Atlas, was able to hold the entire cosmology with his back. Kratos has shown relative strength to Atlas, and he was able to beat Kronos, who was the god and king of the Titans, so he would be the strongest. And as previously mentioned, Kratos scales to Zeus, Zeus being a character who's narratively implied to be able to one-shot Poseidon and Hades, who are the strongest of the Olympians. And once again, Kratos just upscales. But overall, considering and analyzing the feats from the 3 games, he would be around low multiversal. But you could try to argue multiversal due to how casual beings who don't even scale to the Olympians were able to create the entire cosmology as a result of their battle. But overall, it's nothing really concrete, especially in comparison to Goku and the considerable jumps of power that he makes in Dragon Ball Super alone. But fear not, God of War fans, this isn't the end for Kratos' scaling during this time period. Kratos should downscale his Norse counterpart as previously mentioned, but we have a lot of evidence in the 2 games that came out since the original trilogy that would suggest that Greek Kratos would downscale his older self by a quantifiable amount. We have stuff like Brock inferring the Blades of Chaos are special, and then he would go on to kind of imply that it's relative to Mjolnir in power, the hammer being able to make it hit so hard that the shockwaves of said hit were able to splinter the world tree. This is important to note because the Yggdrasil is a construct which is said to transcend space and time, meaning that it would be 5th dimensional, so the blades would upscale to that level of power. How much they scale to each other is kind of unquantifiable, but due to the nature of dimensional scaling, if the Blades of Chaos scaled to even 1% of Mjolnir's power, the blades would still be 5D inherently. There's also some narrative implications, like Kratos stating that he's beaten stronger gods than Heimdall. You might think that he's talking about Magni and Modi and Boulder, but Mimir's next statement of "I don't doubt this" would seem to infer that he's talking about the Greek gods, because Mimir's statement of "he doesn't doubt that" would seem to imply that whatever gods Kratos were talking about were gods that Mimir never met or saw. All of the Aesirs should be relative in attack potency, as minor ones such as Magni were able to endure an entire beating from a drunken, bloodlusted Thor. Alright, maybe not bloodlusted, but very, very angry. So Kratos stating that some Greek gods would upscale Heimdall, who's considered just a straight up Aesir, would go a long way for the Greek gods overall. There's also the fact that the Greek gods are a little hesitant to box with Kratos himself, with Odin and Thor knowing of Kratos' past, and Odin suggesting a truth, and Thor having some high expectations for Kratos off of his past in Greece. Not to suggest that Greek Kratos would beat the Norse pantheon, but he was still a threat to be taken seriously and not worth fighting overall. There's also some other stuff, such as Mimir holding Zeus in high regard, as once he learned that Kratos was the son of Zeus, he says that it makes sense why Kratos is so powerful then, meaning that Zeus was someone thought of very highly across other pantheons. So there's a lot of little stuff like that that would seem to infer that Greek Kratos has some scaling off of the Norse saga of video games. As for speed, he would range anywhere from infinite to immeasurable speed, like the gods of destruction and Zeno and all them. As even going as far back as the Greek saga, he would scale to the light of Helios, which he could react to and fight people who could dodge it. The light of Helios could illuminate the entire underworld, which has multiple statements confirming it to be infinite in size. Moving on to the inaccessible speed stuff, he would upscale the Primordials, who existed before time. And they were able to move around and fight in it, meaning they could move around in spaces with zero time, so inaccessible. And for immeasurable speed, Kratos' AP would scale to weapons that could splinter trees, which are said to transcend space and time, so that would inherently warrant immeasurable speed. And with all the stats lined up for both of our combatants, it's a little funny to me that if we limit ourselves just to the Greek saga, Kratos is kind of outmatched, I'm not even gonna lie. Off the bat, he has a major speed disadvantage, as I've only seen scaling that gets Greece Kratos to like infinite or inaccessible, nothing that is immeasurable, unlike the gods of Dragon Ball Super. And he would be at an attack potency disadvantage as well, as his multiversal scaling is simply not that deep, especially compared to like high tiers like Zeno or any relevant god of destruction, to be honest. But using the lore of the verse, as well as the feats and scaling that Greek Kratos should scale to now, there's no contest anymore. Greek Kratos gets a nasty bump to his attack potency as well as speed, scaling to 5th dimensional constructs and weapons. And for some of you guys who don't understand the difference of power between multiversal and 5th dimensional, let's just say that one is infinitely times stronger than the other. Dimensional scaling, am I right? It's so confusing yet so simple. Granted, there are higher end interpretations for the Dragon Ball cosmology. I've personally seen 5th to 6th dimensional as a pretty popular end at the moment, but I don't think it's nearly as consistent as low multiversal to multiversal. I was trying to use a consistent scaling for both of these IPs, but if you want to use those, then we'd have to pull up the author statements that confirm the power of hope as well as the Greek gods to be abstract platonic concepts. So if you want to use them, then we'd have to give Kratos some of his higher end stuff. But even in a battle of Wank, Kratos could potentially upscale to an infinite degree. So to answer the original question of this video, could Greek Kratos solo the Dragon Ball Super gods? And yes, he certainly could, with even Lord Zeno himself being reduced to a pack, smoked by the ghost of Sparta himself. And with that, we're done with another video. But before I let you guys go, I want to thank Edward on Disc. He was able to provide me a lot of speed arguments, and we've had a lot of discussions about attack potency, so he was more than a good help. I'd also want to thank Nick, yes, that Nick. But unironically, while he's not a power scaler, I would like to thank him for the discussions we had, because he's a pretty adamant fan of God of War, so he was able to refresh me on the inverse stuff. So without these two goats right here, this video wouldn't be nearly as good as it is. God of War is one of my favorite game series of all time, and it was fun to talk about it on the channel. If you guys like God of War, as well as any other video games for that matter, make sure to tell me in the comments. Tell me what you want to see. And with that, I'll let you guys go now. We'll be back next week, and remember, stay big, G fans.